He was 15 years old when Pearl Harbor Day happened, and he decided to join the service the next day. We're here today to honor Brother Eugene Brown and his service to our country during World War II. Brother Eugene is the last surviving member of Northridge Church who is not only a World War II veteran, but also a World War II combat veteran. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Brother Eugene's personal life, but concentrate on his military life. He was born on Christmas Day, 1925. His birth certificate shows he was born December 24th, but the doctor was drunk at the time and recorded the wrong date. He was 15 years old when Pearl Harbor Day happened, and he decided to join the service the next day. But being 15 years old, his mom wouldn't sign the papers for him to join until he was 17. Brother Eugene said he nagged his mother every day, begging her to sign his enlistment papers. And when he turned 17, she did. And he spent New Year's Day in Camp Landing, Florida. Brother Eugene passed the requirements to become an aviation cadet. He had seen 3 beautiful silver B-17s flying in formation and promised himself he was going to fly in one. Now the war was changing, and there was now enough pilots for the time. And Brother Eugene was sent to be trained as an aircraft mechanic. A notice was posted for volunteers to go to gunnery school, and Brother Eugene's name was the second one on the list. He became a ball turret gunner in a B-17. Now, for those of you who may not know, a ball turret on the B-17 is that round glass ball on the very bottom of the belly of the plane with the machine guns, and that's what he was trained to do. Now, he flew his missions out of Paddington, England, as a member of the United States Air Corps 407th Bomb Squadron, 92nd Bomb Group. Brother Eugene flew 37 combat missions, although he was given credit for only 33. The rule was, fly the route as briefed. If you bombed the target, you had a successful mission. But if not, you took a target of opportunity, but were not given credit for a successful mission. Due to enemy cannon fire causing heavy damage to their B-17s, Brother Eugene's crew made 4 wheels-up landings. Wheels-up landing means no landing gear. They landed, hit the belly of the plane. And the ball turret being on the bottom, guess what hit the ground first? So Brother Eugene had to get out of that thing before they hit the ground. They made 4 wheels-up landings in Germany and 2 landings at Land's End just beyond the White Cliffs of Dover that were made without power or brakes. These 2 runways were 15 miles long, where the B-17s could coast to a stop and save the airplane. And I might also mention here that during these combat missions, Brother Eugene would recite the 91st Psalm out loud. God directly intervened in saving Brother Eugene's life on 2 occasions. Now, on one occasion, flying at 32,500 feet and minus 80 degrees, enemy cannon fire destroyed the oxygen tube to his turret. Brother Eugene went unconscious pretty quickly from a lack of oxygen. The ball turret had to be kept moving at all times, and after it had not moved in over 30 minutes, the pilot radioed back to base that Gunner Brown had been killed in action. Sometime later, the radio operator manually turned the turret to the proper position and pulled Brother Eugene out of the turret into the radio room and put a pure oxygen mask on him. In a few minutes, Brother Eugene came back to consciousness with no ill effects. God directly intervened on his behalf. On another occasion, the flight was very intense, and they lost 3 engines. the pilot gave the order to bail out. Brother Gene's parachute was stored outside the turret because there was just no room inside the turret for his parachute as well. So the pilot gave the order to bail out. Brother Gene asked the pilot if he was going to bail out, and the pilot indicated he was going to try to land the aircraft. Brother Gene said to the pilot that he had never disobeyed a direct order, but if the pilot was not going to bail out, neither was he. At that point, the other crew members said they were not going to bail out either. The pilot successfully landed the airplane in a bombed-out airfield in Germany. And then after the belly landing, the crew got out of the airplane, and Brother Gene took off his parachute harness. Enemy cannon fire had severed his main support harness, and if he had bailed out as ordered, he would have jumped to his death. Brother Gene then understood why he had not obeyed a direct order to bail out, and had survived because of the grace of God, a praying mother, and his personal faith in Jesus Christ. Now, the ball turret gunner was responsible for counting the bombs as they dropped, so they would know if they had all dropped or not. They could not return to base or make a wheels-up landing with live bombs on board. On one occasion, 2 of the bombs did not drop. Brother Gene had to crawl out of the turret, put on a portable oxygen tank, flying at 32,500 feet, minus 90 degrees, over open bomb bay doors and no parachute. Brother Gene had nothing to hold on to but a rope. He had to walk along a catwalk which was 9 inches wide and 6 feet long over this open bomb bay, over the bomb bay doors to get to the bombs. Then he had to extend his body as far as possible over the side of the catwalk in order to kick the shackles as hard as he could to free the bombs from the shackles. He then had to get back to his ball turret. Because of this act of bravery, Brother Gene received the Air Medal. The Air Medal is a military decoration of the United States Armed Forces. It was created in 1942 and is awarded for single acts of heroism or meritorious achievement while participating in aerial flight. Now, after being honorably discharged from the military, Brother Gene married his first wife and started a family. His wife passed away 31 years later. Some years later, he met and married Carol, and between them they have 6 children. And the rest, as they say, is history.
I flew 37 missions over Germany. It's kind of hard with the passage of time to remember anything I remember. I remember praying I'd live through this to go home, go fishing again. If a man's ever in combat, he's going to answer some questions to himself. Who is God? Does he know me? Has he a place for me? And that's not a confession of a brave man. Every man in combat is brave. Every man can break. You know, you're not alone. Sometimes there were 36 aircraft along with me, and the nearest aircraft was, probably 10 feet away. From my power window, I could look and see the color of the color of his eyes. So, you know, you're alone, but you're not alone. Flew 4 missions to Berlin, and you always after breakfast go for briefing. And briefing is maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. It was always the same. You go in for briefing and they'd pull the curtains, and the first 8-foot blackboard would say, "Berlin!" And everybody, "Oh!" And Hitler had said no airman will ever go to Berlin and live to tell about it. He won't go to jail, he just won't live. And he meant it. And it was a costly trip. In 37 missions, you cover Germany pretty well. I remember one time, it was where Hitler's home was. He had a home in the mountains, Berchtesgaden, and it wasn't a particular military target, just a target of, I'll show you, target of revenge. 36 of us, 17s, I don't know how many men that would be, usually 10 or 11 men to the ship. I'm afraid we shot that place up a little bit, and we didn't have good words to say about Hitler. You've completed your mission and you're flying back home, and you know if you've got wounded aboard your ship, and we have had it, and we've had dead, the pilot fires a double red flare, and that's heart-sickening. You know all the men you were flying with. They may not be close friends, but you know them personally. And to see 5 aircraft in front of you firing double red flares, you know, they made it back, but we don't know how much of them made it back. One mission, some Army Rangers found a occupied German POW camp. If you were a prisoner, you're going to be free in less than an hour. It was a prison compound with 8-foot electrified fence. All hell broke loose for about 15 minutes. American troops came with dynamite sticks, and they set their mind to it that if you are an American, you're going to come out walking. We were shot down 3 times. The B-17 has 4 engines, and they will fly a little way on 1 engine. But when 4 engines are gone, you're going to the ground. Whether you want to or not. And you put an awful lot of trust in your pilot. He knows his airplane well. And I can recall the first one. He was talking on the hall call, and he says, by now, if Brown wants to live, he's up in the radio room in prone position. But B-17s, they scatter themselves over a 10-acre field when they go down with wheels up. It's a lot of fun, and a lifetime later, I remember it.